Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ film festival. This is our 35th anniversary. We have some amazing programming this year. One of our films that is streaming is Our Dead Danielle. I'm going to read a little bit about the film, and then we're going to talk to the director, S.C. King. Danielle Joy DJ Healy was terrified of being herself for 57 years, fearing she would lose her wife, $2, and prestigious law career. The traditional nuclear family dream in idyllic Sugarland, Texas was forever changed once she revealed in 2017 to the Facebook community the secret she kept for decades. Danielle is trans. The film is directed by S.C. King, who is here today. Thank you so much for bringing this amazing documentary to our attention, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I love Atlanta.
Okay, that is so great to hear. So what made you, I mean, I know the story, but so what made you want to make this film?
Sure. Well, I grew up in the cul-de-sac next to Danielle and Becky, and I was a closeted genderqueer lesbian, and I had no idea that Danielle was going through what she was going through. But
Hmm.
they kind of took a liking to me, I think, because they probably sensed that I was gay before I even knew I was gay. And then I got involved in comedy, and Danielle's daughter Sarah had an interest in comedy, so for whatever reason, Danielle and Becky just took an active interest in my life, and we stayed in touch. And then years later, around 2017, Danielle called to tell me that she had a secret and that she was trans and she was ready to come out.
Okay.
And then she initially asked me to direct a comedic web series that she had written about like the lighter side of being trans.
Yeah.
But to be honest, and a little bit of that is in the movie. But to be honest, Danielle and Becky weren't really much of actors, and and we tried real hard. We gave it a real hard shot that first day, but I
Yeah.
basically sat them down and I was like, "Look, I love y'all, but I don't think acting is the strong suit here. I think maybe we should try to tell this as a documentary. Would you
Yeah.
be interested?" And they said yes, and so then we production began early 2018, and then we shot for a few years, and we won a grant which led to extending the film. But originally it was going to just be like a webisode, like an episode, and then it evolved into the feature documentary.
Okay, great. How, I mean, I can't imagine how difficult it was for Danielle to say this aloud for the first time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things for me. There was just a lot about Danielle's story that I could connect with.
Yeah.
Um, the torment of religious pressure, societal pressure. Growing up in that environment, I understood it. I'm the youngest of six kids in a really Christian conservative family, and I'm the only queer. So like, there was just a lot there that I could relate to. And one of the things that I realized with Danielle early on is like she's an extremely successful lawyer, and she's
Mhm.
always in control. And at first, that's one of the things, like she wasn't really willing to go to the harder side of that story at first. But then as time progressed and the more time I spent there in the home with her, the more she got to like the root of that. And that was the thing. I mean, for so many people, it's just the way that torment and holding on to a secret like that, how that wears on you, and the guilt and the shame that you can feel. We wanted to explore that, but then we also equally wanted to celebrate how beautiful it is, and the difference between, like, once she came out, it felt like Danielle, like just years and years and years, 30 years of lying, and just was lifted off of her.
Yeah.
And she had found this like new appreciation for life and for law, and that was really beautiful, and that was what we really wanted to celebrate. I didn't want to shy away from that the hard and the sad, but it was so important for both me and my producer Leah Judge to really also celebrate exactly the beauty that comes when you accept yourself and you feel like you can be accepted. And that's something that's uniquely in the LGBTQ experience more than most situations. We all can relate to that to a certain degree.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so I think that she was excited to celebrate that, and the liberation that came with finally being out. I mean, 57 years old is pretty old to come out.
Exactly. I mean, as you mentioned, the process of coming out is just, I mean, I mean, it's individual for everybody. I mean, it takes takes
Absolutely.
however long it takes. I mean, it's a difficult decision. But can you talk a little bit about it? Obviously, you know, you covered this, but can you talk a little bit about, you know, Danielle's family,
Mhm.
colleagues, other townspeople, and how they deal with it individually?
Sure. I mean, Danielle's family, that was the other thing. I mean, Becky and Danielle are best friends, and they've been together. Today's their 32nd wedding
Oh,
anniversary,
wow.
and they're still together. And it's of course it's been complicated, and Becky's very upfront about that. But she is in love with Danielle, and she is committed to staying in that relationship. And so again, that's why we talk about it, because Danielle, part of her secret to survival is her sense of humor, and she
Yeah.
started doing stand up as a way just to express herself when she started losing more and more of her business. And that joke about, are you guys lesbians, and she's like, well, I think we are, but don't tell Aunt Becky. I mean, that whole process has been um interesting for them to navigate. And we also, again, we wanted to celebrate that, because I always appreciated Becky's honesty,
Yeah.
you know and her family's been super supportive, as we discussed in the film. She's extremely close with Sarah, who's an actress, and they've worked together on things. And Sarah's younger and a little bit more liberal, so her response. And she's also the one who saw Danielle in the pool, so she saw Danielle, and that's how the whole thing came to how Danielle was kind of forced to come out.
Mhm.
But Hillary is supportive. It's just she's not someone who ever wants to be on camera, doesn't like the idea of like any kind of acting or fame or any of that. So she was supportive, but supported behind the scenes, which again I wanted to try to show in the film, because so many people asked, well, where is Hillary, or why is Hillary not supportive? And the thing is that she is, but it's just hard to believe in 2022, but there are a lot of people who don't want to be famous and be in a movie, and Hillary was one of them. But in terms of the townspeople, Danielle walks around Sugarland with a target on her back. I mean, she is a tall woman, and she's a big personality. So she stands out always. And people in that area are very conservative. So in terms of like the townspeople, which we also kind of explore in the film and allow people to make their own opinions on how this is really being processed by the people around them. But I mean, I think, look, it made for a lot of gossip in Sugarland, and I think it still does.
Yeah, I mean, coming out as trans is not easy anywhere, but Texas, I mean, would seem
No.
like especially difficult place. Can you talk about the environment?
Sure. I mean, listen, it's I grew up there and I moved away, so it's complicated for me, and all my family's still there. The environment is hard.
Hmm.
It's very conservative still. It's very much, they believe in the fear, they believe in the kind of the propaganda. And part of the reason that I wanted to make this film was because I understand a lot of people from that environment. They're just operating out of a place of fear because of lack of exposure.
Yeah.
And the minute you humanize Danielle and other trans people, you see a shift. And I saw it with my family and people that I grew up with, people who've seen the film that aren't that are Republican or that or moderate. I saw a shift in them just by seeing Danielle's humanity, right, and the struggle and the love, and just how much she really, like, she was willing to almost kill herself because she was terrified of losing her family and her wife, her daughters, and her career. And I don't see how anyone can watch that and not have empathy for
I-
her and other trans people, especially those that come from. I mean, Danielle's privilege, as we discussed, she has a lot of that financial security, and she lived for like 57 years with male privilege as well, which is a very different way to navigate the world. And
Yeah.
so now it's great that she's using her privilege to try to help. But you see Sasha's experience in the film. I mean, um, so much of what's happening right now is really, again, it's just based in lack of exposure and fear. And so really we wanted to just to try to show how beautiful all of these remarkable trans women are,
Mhm.
and celebrate their spirit, and their willingness to not back down in the face of all of this kind of hate that's thrown their way, especially by an idiot like Abbott.
No comment there. Um,
Well, I'll comment. I don't like the guy.
Exactly. I was reading that the creative team was 100% women or gender non-binary individuals. I
Yep.
can't remember that. Can you talk about the decision to do that?
Well, sure. It was very important for me because of I've worked in the business for a while, and one of the things to commit to making a documentary, as you know, it's a long process,
Yeah.
and you just don't know which way it's going to go. And I just was really committed to helping out my community and the other marginalized people that fall under that umbrella because they deserve it. We deserve it. And I knew we could do it. And there was a time where I was being approached by some men with money, but they right away, like they were just talking at me, mansplaining all these things. And I'm like, well, like, why are you explaining this experience to me? This is this is my experience, and it's Danielle's experience. It's not yours.
Yeah.
And I don't want your money, frankly, because I don't agree with your opinion. So we just kind of felt like we had to do it, and we all just came together and we made it work. I mean, so many people, honestly, I just owe so much to everyone because people worked for free or for very little. And so many people in my life, so many like actually old neighbors that used to live in our cul-de-sac donated money to make the film at the end. Like we got some really wonderful donations towards the end of all of this by neighbors that I hadn't seen in like 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Um, but because everyone, yeah, I mean, so for me, it really wasn't, there was no question we were going to do it the way that we did it. I wanted it to be as LGBTQ plus as possible, and then absolutely as many women as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, how difficult was your own coming out experience?
Very hard
Yeah.
because I was the youngest of six, and I mean, everyone's got their trauma baggage, and with me, I mean, I had a brother who had passed away when I was little, and I just kind of grew up very aware of two things: being different, but also wanting to kind of always make everyone happy.
Hmm.
And I very early on uh, was absolutely labeled a tomboy, and only played with boys' toys, only wanted to dress in boys' clothes. Asked my mom to call me a boy's name, but none of that registered for me or my family. They did not know. I and my family, we had really no idea. I mean, I was very. I went to church a lot, and I even at one point thought about being a nun because I I had so much, I think, guilt around all of this.
Yeah.
And it was, it was funny. It was I always, yeah. So basically, how my experience was, it was really hard. And then later on, someone in my family got sick. They had cancer, and that was going on for a few years. And so basically, I kept on putting off coming out because that classic kind of Texas Christian conservative family. I felt like it's not the time. It was never the right time. And then finally, I had fallen in love, and I was ready to come out, and I came out. And I thought for sure my dad knew, my mom was going to freak out, and I had it totally wrong. My mom just like hugged me right away and was like, "Why didn't you bring her to your sister's wedding?" And my dad was like, "Well, it is what it is." Um, but like but it took me a very, very, I don't want to say how old I was, but I was pretty damn old when I finally had that conversation. But it changed the game because like my mom and I became best friends again. I had pushed her away for a long time because I didn't want to lie.
Yeah.
So then once I was out, it was like we were close again. And then after that, it just kind of, it felt like, who gives a shit? Who cares? I mean, but that's the thing. Like you asked earlier about Sugarland and where I come from. Um, I mean, I definitely lost a lot of friends from it, but I mean, who cares? Those aren't real friends.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, but I mean, and everyone has their own timeline, which is so important. But for me, I think because of that different upbringing, I just didn't even, I had no idea for a long time. I
Yeah.
had no idea. Yeah. I mean, looking back, of course, I see it all. It's like, oh my god. But I think like, yeah, even in high school, oh my, I was on the golf team. I was on the golf team, Jim, and people were like, "But lesbian, lesbian." I'm like, "I'm not a lesbian. I have a crush on Kyle Dickey." And in hindsight, I realized I didn't want to have sex with Kyle. I wanted to be Kyle.
Huh.
Um, but again, where I grew up, I didn't have that exposure. I mean, the world is so different now, which is so amazing, and that's why it's so great you're celebrating 35 years of this.
Thank you.
But a lot of people don't grow up with that exposure experience. I think I'm taking up too much time. So
No, no,
150.
no, 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 no. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your festival run, because I know that you sort of started earlier this season. You got some more festivals coming. Tell me a little bit about your festival run and where this film will eventually land.
Well, sure. Well, we are going to be having distribution
Very
soon, which is
nice.
exciting. So we'll be available. But I can't announce any of that yet. We've
Okay.
had a great festival run. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. It was our first film, and so we submitted during COVID, and we got our first festival in Vale. And the region, I wanted to go to Vale because I had heard it. I wanted to go there and party in Vale, but then COVID happened. So instead, we weren't sure if we should stay or not. We ended up staying, and we did it, and it was a wonderful experience. But our first two festivals were online,
Hmm.
which was, of course, it's not the same as being there, you know. And then we got to go to Manchester, and that was pretty amazing. We went to Manchester, England, and there we ended up winning Best Documentary Feature, which we had no idea. We were so hungover that day, and then we had just gotten over COVID, and we just
Wow.
like we all looked and felt like shit, and we were sitting in the audience, like just having a good time. And when that category came, I swear to God, we all. It was me, my producer, and my director of photography. We just kind of all sat there for like at least a minute, just like, wait, what? Looking back and forth. And then, but yeah, I mean, it's been wonderful, and y'all have been wonderful. We absolutely love Atlanta. I came with my partner, who's also the producer,
Hmm.
and we both were like, we could live here. I mean, it's just such
Okay.
a dynamic city. Yeah. And then
Okay.
next one we're doing is it LA Femme International?
Okay.
It's a women's festival. We're
That's good.
trying to do a little bit of everything. We
Exactly.
wanted to do LGBTQ stuff. We wanted to do you know, some more straight leaning festivals, and
Yeah.
then now we're doing the LA Femme
Great.
next. Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
So much. The film is Our Dad Danielle. It's streaming. It's part of Out on Film's 35th anniversary programming. The director is S.C. King. Thank you so much for sharing this film with us. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. And we look forward to working with you again.
Well, Jim, thanks for listening to me ramble.
No, this was an amazing Q&A.
Oh, honey, I am so tired, and I thought it wasn't going to happen, so I apologize. Thank you for listening to me be like, ah.
This is great. I look forward to meeting you this weekend at Utopia.
I'm going to hug you.
Oh, please do.
All right. Thank
Thanks so
you.
very much.
All right. Have a good one.
You do. Thanks.